Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio two talented and intelligent gentlemen, Mr. Russell Cato and Mr. Jamie Wilson III, my co-host. Also, we're honored and pleased to have former two-term mayor of St. Petersburg, Rick Baker, joining us today. Mayor Baker, welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast.
Ray, it is always good to be with you in whatever forum we're at. And you know, I want some training from you on how to have an enthusiastic voice like you have. I have to tell you, the way you start the show, I wish I could do my life every day that way. That's great. With all of you.
You do quite well. You do quite well.
Glad to have.
According to an article printed in the St. Pete Catalyst magazine, quote, Mayor Baker has been described as one of the most well-known and well-loved figures in the St. Petersburg community. Having served as mayor from 2001 to 2010, Mayor Baker gained a reputation as one of the city's greatest cheerleaders and toughest critics, end of quote. It is for these reasons and others, when Mayor Baker speaks, people tend to listen. On November 15th, 2023, Mayor Baker wrote an opinion piece that was published in the Tampa Bay Times. Basically, the article suggested that the proposed plan for building a new baseball stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays will come with huge costs of more than $1.3 billion for St. Petersburg and Pinellas County residents. In return, the name of the team, not stadium, name of the team should reflect the name of the city that is investing the funding and land for this deal. Interestingly enough, the Tampa Bay Times editorial board wrote a piece sharing the same sentiments. Mayor Baker is here to share his thoughts regarding the article he wrote and the suggestion of the new name, the St. Petersburg Rays. Before we begin, we ask that you, Mayor Baker, share with our listeners where you were born and educated.
Thanks, Ray. And thanks for that introduction. I was born in Chicago, and I grew up in Chicago, Indianapolis, which is kind of why we have a Grand Prix race now.
Okay.
I became an IndyCar fan back then. Miami, and then I spent my last 6 months of high school at Brandon, and I graduated from Brandon High School.
Okay.
I went to Florida State. I got my received my bachelor's, my MBA in finance emphasis, and my law degree from Florida State.
Okay, all from Florida State.
Just kept going until they said, go get a job, you know, so I went and got a job.
You were class president
I was senior class president at
at Florida State.
Sure was, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Seminole.
I was a Lambda Chi too at Florida State. We played Omega Psi Phi basketball on a regular basis. Russell, I just have to point that out to you. I'm pretty sure you beat us every time, but we always put up a good fight.
All right, all right. Mayor, prior to writing your article suggesting the name change for the Tampa Bay Rays, did you talk with anyone in the Rays organization, city council, or county commission about your idea?
Thanks, Ray. Ray, I probably first wrote a column about this 30 years ago. So I've talked to everybody I know about this idea for a long, long time. I've always felt if that one of the most important, I've talked specifically to the Rays organization about this in the past. I've talked to the newspaper about this in the past. I've talked to anybody that'll talk to me about it. I believe that one of the greatest benefits to a community for a professional sports team is the brand.
Mhm.
And branding of a city is important. And we get none of the brand with the Tampa Bay Rays. We get none of it because the rest of the world sees Tampa Bay and Tampa is the same thing. And I have nothing against Tampa. I love Tampa, but I think St. Pete's a great city too. And if our city and by the way, the 1.3 billion that you quoted was actually an analysis that the Tampa Bay Times had done, and they had come up with that number. But whatever the number is, it's a lot. And if our citizens are going to be putting up that kind of money, and I'm not by the way, I'm not arguing that is even a good deal at all. I'm not the financial deal. I'm not even getting into that. Let other people debate that, whether we should have them or not have them or pay for it, not have them. All I'm saying is if we do pay that kind of money, and if we do put up 86 acres of land in one of the hottest downtowns in the Southeast United States, that land is worth a boatload of money. And if we're going to put up that as a city, then we ought to get the name. I think that I don't even understand what a good argument against that is. You know, I just, it's St. Petersburg Rays. St. Petersburg is, we're not a bedroom community. We're a major city. You know, we're a major financial hub. We have companies like Raymond James headquartered here. We have companies like Jabil headquartered here. We have Franklin Templeton. We have lots of major insurance companies. Duke, Florida. I mean, this is a major city, and not a bedroom city of someplace else. And I believe that if we're going to put up that kind of money, and if we're going to put up that kind of land, then it makes sense. The name should be St. Petersburg Rays.
Now, I have read some comments relative to the article you wrote and the article that was written by the editorial board. And some of the commenters suggested that they were against the name change based on the fact that they felt the baseball team represented an asset to the region. Now, I'm not saying I agree with them, but I'm just making that point.
Right.
There is that argument that it should be a regional name.
Yeah, and I get that. And if I would check the zip code of who wrote those articles, those comments, because I've never seen anybody. Now maybe there is people in St. Pete that disagree with this, but the vast majority of people I run into in St. Pete feel that it should be St. Petersburg on the name. I guess I dispute the fact that Tampa Bay is a regional name. Nobody thinks of St. Petersburg and Pittsburgh when they're seeing the Tampa Bay Rays. They're thinking of Tampa, and that's the Tampa and Tampa Bay. And you know, Ray, how many times have you watched the or Russ or Jamie? How many times have you watched the games, whether it's a Bucks game or a Lightning game, and how many times do they just say Tampa?
Right.
How many times do they just say Tampa? Right,
Tampa.
you've heard it right over and over again. So people see it as the same. And I'm not against Tampa. I think Tampa's great. And if they want to put up $1.3 billion and they want to give up 86 acres of downtown, I'm okay with them taking the team, right? But if it's going to be here, if we're going to put up the money and if we're going to put up the land, it ought to be St. Petersburg Rays. And if they wanted to call it Tampa Rays or Tampa Bay Rays, if they put up $1.3 billion and if they put up 86 acres of land, I would say let them have the team. But I don't think they're going to do that. And so if we're going to do it, then we ought to get the name of the team.
Okay.
I don't even, again, I do get that, but you know, the St. Petersburg Grand Prix is actually a national event, a statewide event, and nobody stays home because it's called St. Petersburg instead of Tampa Bay or Florida or something like that. It's you name the team where it is.
Okay, good points. Good points. Russ, did you want to say anything?
Not at this time.
Not
I
at
just
this
want
time?
I just want him to finish. Yeah.
What about you, Jay?
I totally agree. I feel that, you know, we have the skin in the game, putting in the money, giving up the real estate for it. It should be.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to go to this question. Mayor, with all due respect, you stated in your article that it is.
You know, I always worry when somebody starts with all due respect. And some bad's coming every time. Not an insult, but something's coming, Jim. I don't know what it is.
You have nothing to worry about.
I'm kidding, Ray.
I know, but with all due respect. You stated in your article that, quote, it is not appropriate to ask our residents to pay hundreds of millions of dollars of their tax dollars for a team named after another city. And you've already, spoke to that. You were mayor at the time that many fans were asking for a name change in 2006 and 2007. Did you offer any input during that time?
Yeah, sure. I asked the Rays organization to change the name.
And what was the name change?
St. Petersburg Rays.
Oh, really?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
They said no. They said no, but I asked them. I was pretty strong with them. I felt, because back then they were trying to do a waterfront stadium, you might recall, and I'm thinking, if this is going to be our land again on the waterfront, you ought to call it St. Petersburg Rays. No, I asked them that back then. They said,
okay, well, great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to this question. Also, in your article, you equated the failure to change the name of the team as being disrespectful on the part of the Rays and or Major League Baseball. Am I correct?
I think it is.
I
think it is disrespectful, because you're saying that this city is not important enough to have the team named after them, even though they're putting $1 billion. And by the way, I don't know that they won't do that. Maybe they will. So I'm not saying they are being disrespectful. I'm saying if they don't do it, that's disrespectful. Because if you're going to put $1.3 billion in money from the city and county, and you're going to give 86 acres of land, then other than I'm not going to try to project as to what their rationale is, other than say it's regional or something. But I think it ought to be named. The vast majority of professional teams are named after the cities they're in.
Right.
The vast majority. Some are others, but vast majority are.
Now, what you're speaking to is what I said earlier when I read the introductory statement about you being one of the city's biggest cheerleaders.
And Ray, when they were doing the Grand Prix, and I'm a race guy, right?
Mhm.
I love IndyCar, and I worked real hard to bring the IndyCar races here. But I made it clear to them that if they were going to race in St. Peter, it was going to be called St. Petersburg Grand Prix. And I think that's just, and by the way, it's worked great, hasn't it? And nobody seems to. I think what that was. So what we our 19th year we're coming into. It's worked out pretty well.
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna ask you this one. In hindsight, you made the statement that if they don't do what's being suggested in terms of changing the name, maybe they should find somewhere else to play.
Well, if I were on city council, I'm not, but if I were, and they refuse to change the name, I wouldn't give the money.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well,
they can play if they want, but they got to come up with their own money and land. But if they want the city's land and the city's money, they got to have the name. But no, I'm not on city council, but that would be my position.
That's fair.
Okay. Well, that's a strong statement. Very strong statement. And being that it's a strong statement, when you said they can go find somewhere else to play, do you think that was too strong?
No.
Okay.
No.
All
I
right.
think that's what I think. maybe it's strong, but it's what I think. It's again, it's St. Petersburg is a very strong city.
Yeah.
Our downtown is when I was part of the effort, by the way,
Right.
to try to build a stadium and get a team and everything 30 years ago. So I'm not new to this, right?
Right.
But 30 years ago, our city needed something. We needed a shot. We needed something to kind of help get the downtown going. There wasn't much going on in the downtown. And we tried that. We did a lot of arts, all the stuff we did when I was mayor. Right now, our city is a very strong downtown. It's a very strong, thriving downtown. There are a million things you could do with that 86 acres. There are a million things you could do with that 86 acres. And it doesn't have to be Major League Baseball. So I don't, if they decide that they don't want to be here, I think that's okay. That's up to them. But we would have, I'm sure we could find plenty of great things to do with that property. In fact, when I was mayor, they were looking to do a property. They were looking to build a stadium on the waterfront, and they actually got proposals for the 86 acres to be built out without a baseball, because they were going to be on the waterfront with the baseball team if they did that. And there was not a shortage of people coming forward to say, we'd love to build on that 86 acres. And that was what, 15 years ago. So now I think you could do it even stronger. And I'm not saying I want them to leave. I think it's good for them to stay if they call the team St. Petersburg.
Mayor, I am very familiar with the things that happened in the past relative to this stadium, especially as you were mayor. And I remember asking you some time ago, had you gotten the opportunity to provide input to the present mayor on the developments? And I don't think you said you had.
No.
Because I know for a fact that you have a lot to say about this situation with your history. And what you have to say is very prominent, very encouraging, very pointed, whatever I want to say. And I felt that you should have had a voice in some of these discussions.
Right.
That's my personal feeling, that you should have had a voice in some of these in these discussions. Therefore, as it relates to this particular suggestion, do you have any idea as to how any of the members on city council might be thinking at this point about that name change possibility?
I mean, I'm sure they've all read the columns
Yes.
by both the Tampa Bay Times editorial board and by me. So I'm sure they're thinking about it. I don't know if anybody's decided one way or the other or what they're going to do, but I'm sure they're thinking. I would think they're thinking about it. I would hope they're thinking about it.
Okay.
But that you'd have to ask them that.
Okay. Well, then we'll move to another legislative body, the county commission. They're going to be on the hook for a large chunk of this $1.3 billion. Do you feel the county commission has a say in this discussion?
Absolutely. Well, first, it's the money that's being spent by the county commission, as I understand it, and I've read the council package, and I'm not sure I understand all of it completely. But as I understand it, it's going to come from hotel tax. You know, when you come and stay at a hotel, you pay a bed tax, and I think that's where most of the county's money is coming from. So, but the county is the body that's going to be allocating that. I think anybody putting money up ought to have say so in it.
Okay, good.
I would think so, right?
Russ?
Yeah, now I can ask the question.
Okay, good.
I come from the gas plant area. That's where I come from. And I noticed in the last 16 years, we've been discussing development of the Trump in the last 16 years. In reading some of your articles, one of the things I came across, I believe you always had a second plan in mind. And it comes to a company by the name of Archstone in Madison. What was your part in that?
I don't recall that. Was that something that came up when I was mayor?
I think you proposed something of that. Let this particular company come in.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
well, back, as I just said a
Yeah.
minute ago, back when I was mayor, the Rays had a
Okay.
proposal to go to the waterfront where Alex
Right,
Stadium is.
right.
And then at that point, they also proposed that the Trop site be redeveloped with
Okay.
another company.
Right.
So there was an RFP for that other company, for which was going to be the other company at the time.
Were you initiating this other company to come?
I wasn't issuing the company. We were issuing an RFP
Alright.
for multiple companies to give proposals at the time as to which it would be. But all of the RFPs were going to be contingent on the Rays going into the Allag site and building a stadium then.
So
And that never went forward.
that's right.
So the rest of it didn't go forward either, whatever it was going to be. I have no opinion on who goes there right now in terms of
Okay.
developer or anything like that.
The second question I want to ask you. I think if I'm not mistaken, you being a former mayor, Kreisman being a former mayor. I think you two have kind of agreed, whatever plan that they raise or what they come up with now, that you should go for it. Is that right?
No,
No,
no, I've never agreed to that.
no.
I'm not against it, but I'm not agreed to that. No.
So whatever plan that they come up with now, well, maybe raise.
I don't, you know,
that's what-
it's kind of like back when you were talking about, have I gotten my input? We have a mayor, we have a city council. I'm not either right now.
Right.
So I'm like any other citizen. I give
Right.
my opinion on whatever it is. My opinion that I'm giving at this point is focused on the name, not on which proposal is done, not on how much it costs, not on whether it's a good deal or financial deal. That's not what I'm doing.
So what you-
My opinion is, if we decide to do it as a city, we ought to name it after the city.
Well, my thing to this, Ray, is this, and I understand the cost, public money, private money, is that right? What we're looking at? The public money will be from the county and the city of St. Petersburg, is that right?
That's right.
And my thing to that is, if that takes place in May, what will be the cost to the taxpayers?
Well, again, I'm just going to defer because I'm not an expert in this, and I'm not trying to advocate for the plan.
Mhm.
Okay. All I'm going to defer back to the analysis that the Tampa Bay Times had done when they said that if you include, you know, the interest and the bonds and everything else all along the way, that it ultimately was $1.3 billion between the county money and the city money, and that's the number I defer to. I'm not going to try to be an authority on that or advocate for it or any of that. I'm not even, you know, I'm not saying that even that's a good number. It should be done. I'm not saying. All I'm saying is my unit focus is if the city and the county spend money on a new stadium and give land, then the team ought to be named after the city. That's my unitary focus. And by the way, I don't want anybody to get the impression I'm against the Rays.
Right.
I think I work, you know, a lot of us worked real hard to get a baseball team and get the Rays here. And I think having the Rays here long term would be a great thing. I just think at this moment, if we're going to put this kind of money in and we're going to put this kind of land in, then the team ought to be named after our city.
Okay, great. I want to make a couple of points. And the first point I want to make is we obviously have been down the road of changing the name of the team before, as I stated earlier. 2007, Stu Sternberg decided he wanted to change the name. So 2008, that particular season is when they started playing as the Tampa Bay Rays. They dropped the devil part of their name. And when Sternberg did that, he made a statement. And his statement was, quote, "We were tied to the past, and the past wasn't necessarily something we wanted to be known for." So he felt great about that name change because we're moving in a new direction. That being said, it goes to reason. A new state-of-the-art stadium, a new development, a new attitude, a huge new debt load for the city and county. Why not a new name? Why not a new name? Out with the old, in with the new. That's one point. Another point, the Devil Rays name was based on an endangered fish in our area, Devil Rays. It was selected after the originally desired name, which was Stingray, was not available. They settled on Devil Rays. And mainly because of the word devil. Mr. Sternberg dropped that word from the name, and the marketing for the team pivoted to sunshine. That's why on their uniform, they have that burst of sunshine, that burst. Hence, the sunshine symbol is on their uniform. Now, let's follow the logic here. Florida is the Sunshine State. St. Petersburg is the Sunshine City. And the Rays will be known for that burst on their uniform as the team named for the sunshine, all this sunshine. And the team can totally move away from the fish reference because the Rays are still fish. Even if you drop the word devil, there's a fish called Rays. So drop that fish reference and stay with the sunshine reference. Out with the old, in with the new. And the word sunshine has more appeal than a fish, I feel. So all of that goes to say there's nothing radical about changing the name to St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg Rays. And I would hope that city council members will take note of all the points you made in your article.
And the editorial board.
And that's what I was about to say, and the editorial board. And more than the city council, I think the ultimate decision is the Rays organization.
Well, I think it's up to the city council to decide whether they're going to require it as part of the funding, you know?
Okay.
So that, you know, you're right. The Rays would have then a decision of to accept it or not, but that would be the city council's decision.
Yeah.
Mayor, you have very strong feelings about this. What type of strategy can possibly be used to make this happen?
Well, so far I've written a column. I'm really not trying to get into a political campaign, Ray, right now. I think it's up to people in the city to decide whether this, I mean, because this is going to be something that's going to be around for a long, long time. And it's really up to the folks that are listening and other people in the city, whether they believe in this, you know. And I'm not, again, this is not, I'm not, if people in the city want this to happen, obviously they're elected officials at city council, they would need to talk to and see if they want to do that. But that's, again, I'm not trying to run a campaign here. I'm just trying to, I wrote a column and I responded to your request to come talk about it. But I think it's really, it's the folks in the community that got to decide this. It's ultimately, because generally city council ultimately reflects what the people in the community are thinking. And so if people feel that way, they need to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm listening to Ray talk to you with this. I don't see how you can avoid a political gap in this.
A political what?
We're talking about a political gap. We're not trying to get into the political environment and dealing with changing the names.
No, I'm not saying
But
obviously it's good.
how can you not avoid this?
Well, I don't disagree that to the extent that people want to call their council member and talk to their council member about that. That's I guess that's a political thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't want to run a campaign.
Right.
I just say it's up to the community to decide whether this is something that they want or not. But obviously it's political because the city council is going to ultimately vote on whether they're going to provide this funding and whether they're going to want to require the name of the team as part of it.
Well, I'll ask this question, if you don't mind. You're well known amongst your peers as a consummate statesman and visionary. Even your column speaks to that. How do you see St. Petersburg evolving in the short term and in the years to come? St. Petersburg evolving.
Generally as a city? Well, I'll tell you, I don't have a crystal ball, but why don't I talk about how I would hope it would evolve?
Okay.
Right? And I think if you can go back and you know you were there around during my term, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what my priorities were, and I wrote a book about it, the seamless city. You know, my goal is for our city to be a seamless city, and that we focus this is kind of a focus on downtown and baseball and that sort of thing, which are good, but they're only part of the puzzle of the city. A city needs to have great public schools. That's very, very important. And you remember the emphasis we put on the public schools back then and the success we had in the public schools. They have to have great neighborhoods and neighborhood programs. We had at one time we had 110 formed neighborhood organizations, and they're all, moving the neighborhoods forward. But it was based out of the neighborhoods. It was neighborhood leaders kind of driving it forward. It's got to be safe city going forward. You have to have jobs and economic advancement. I think one of the greatest challenges we talk about affordable housing, and that's a challenge. Part of that is making, we like to talk about jobs. Are there not enough jobs? And there are actually a lot of jobs. What we need is to make sure that the people in the community have the skills to be able to get the jobs and hold the jobs that are out there. And I'm a big believer in apprenticeship programs and training programs and education programs, and trying to get people to the point they can do that. So you asked me kind of a broad question. I talked too much, Ray, but that's my feeling.
And I appreciate it. And we're at the end here. And what I'm going to do is have to wrap it up. It's a 30-minute show, and
Sure.
we are at the end because I really wanted to comment on some of the things you've said, but I don't have the time. With that being said, Mayor, we can't say enough about how much we appreciate your being here.
It's great to be here.
We are hoping that the listeners will respond to your article. Thanks a million for being here. I want to thank my two co-hosts for their contributions to the program as always. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to the Ray Tampa podcast each and every Tuesday at 5:30 on 99.1 FM, The Berg. And I want to emphasize sponsorships are welcome. And with that being said, good evening.